Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully, you guys are actually hearing me. And please let me know if you're actually hearing me. Just a few things, well, actually, quite a lot of things today. Decided to, officially get the podcast running. Today is the 1st of December, guys. 1st of December. And as we already know, in the world of flight sim, there's quite a lot going on in the world of flight sim. As we already know, the launch of Microsoft 2024, but this is not going to be about Microsoft today. Hopefully, if you guys are actually hearing me, you guys would let me know if you guys actually hear me. So give me a second while I actually get everything else running as well. So if you guys actually want to get me, you guys can actually get me as well in Discord as well. Okay, so just putting up the audio and everything there as well. So hopefully, if everybody wants to hear me there, they can get me there inside of Discord. All right. Yeah, so I'm actually in the lobby as well, so hopefully that shouldn't be, hopefully you guys can actually get me everything there in the lobby. That's if you really want to throw in your questions or anything that you really want to throw. You want to speak about, really and truly, we can actually, speak about it. Yeah, so without any further ado, hopefully the music is a little too loud. You guys can actually let me know if you guys hear it. That would be the first agenda, just to make sure everything's all checked. Just let me know if you guys actually hear me, and I will actually proceed along. Let me see. Yeah, I believe everything is okay. Quite a lot to discuss about, guys. Quite a lot. That's actually for those who are actually very interested in Xplane in the first place. And we actually have a list of things, man. We got a list of things there, and like I said, we have their procedure. So we're actually going to look at today the key differences, guys. Key differences between 11 and 12. New features, performance upgrades of Xplane 12. Well, pretty much as we know, Xplane 12 is pretty much the go-to sim. I would say people use it more now, obviously. But are all of these sims actually, or should you buy actually these sims? If or should you upgrade, in other words, to these sims? So yeah, we got a few things, man. But like I said, we got a key, in other words, key moments and stuff like that. So when we're gonna be starting the first part, which is the key features and stuff, within about 10 minutes. So we're just getting all the introductory stuff here, pretty much loading up everything here. Then we're gonna go, we're gonna start everything in just a few minutes. I have a few things up. Now, I believe you guys probably hear me. I believe you guys probably hear me. So if you guys actually hear me, so then you guys can actually let me know. Or if you guys actually aren't hearing me too well, please let me know. I know sometimes things tend to be a little bit, but I can actually check myself. So let me just make sure everything is running all smooth, and then we'll see. Yeah, because I'm always flying, and I'm like, this time around I'm actually gonna do something. Well, not do something different, but I think so. Whether streamers getting things a little bit discounted at the start, or getting things, I would say buying things or whatever the case may be, whether it's at full price or whatever the case may be. It will be quite expensive to be paying for all of these things, man. So you really want to make sure your money is worth when it comes to the sims. So we have about 2 more minutes before we actually start the actual official segment of the stream, and I'm hoping you guys would actually come along, voice yourself if you feel like, if you think it's necessary. So I'm actually there, like I said, I'm there in Discord if you guys actually see a reason to. But yeah, man, Xplane 11 versus Xplane 12, they've got quite a lot of differences. quite a lot of differences. Now, I know in the world of Microsoft Flight Sim, 2024, 2020, it's like most people go to the Sims where, pretty much more or less for visuals. But I think it's good to actually critique this moment in terms of Flight Sim and in terms of like Xplane or Laminar. So we're actually gonna, like I said, as well discuss a little bit about Laminar as well and their position in Flight Sim community. Now, this is not a fully or interview yet type of stream or podcast, I would say. But pretty much this is gonna be the beginning, I would say, of getting those interviews. Whereas, like with whether it is with people from the actual community, giving a chance for community members as well to really come and voice themselves if they really want to. Or if anybody has anything to say, really and truly they can take up this opportunity to say what they really want to say at the moment. Now, we have less than a minute. We have a few things here in terms of the first segment, which is in terms of the key features. And I would say, first of all, I would say Xplane, I believe, is still sort of in the market. I would say in terms of Xplane 11 versus 12, there is still a niche into why I would say it is still, or you should probably still go to Xplane, or probably just don't dump Xplane right away, like, send it off, ship it off, into the dumpster or something like that. But I would say there is still a good reason for it. So without any further ado, we're gonna start off with the key differences here in this segment. And first and foremost, we got one of the things I think in terms of Xplane 11 versus 12, I believe really stands out. I think, well, probably one of them that actually stands out, or you would tell the difference, is how Librine is connected with Xplane. In terms of Xplane 11, and then how it is shown with the rain effects in Xplane 12. Now, in Xplane 11, before they didn't actually have all of these rain effects and all that, but then Librine made a very big difference for Xplane 11, right? And I think like that difference was really a big difference, because at least you'll be able to see some rain particles. And now the thing is, not all the aircrafts are compatible, because some of these whether it's third-party libraries, it has to be connected with the actual aircraft to be able to actually be displayed. So some aircrafts, the Zibo end up getting the Librine to work, so you can use the Librine with Zibo, and then that would you'll be able to see those rain effects. Now, Xplane 12, however, in Xplane 12, the Librine is already embedded. So if I can actually show you guys, well, actually I'll show you guys here on the other screen here. So if we come up to this screen, not the same yet, and we go to Librine, right? So as I was saying, Librine for Xplane, right? So this is the Librine, which is generic rain and ice and stuff like that, right? That's for which was used for Xplane 11, right? So you would take this, and then you put it into your custom scenery, and then you would. What is custom scene? Is it custom scenery? Let me see. Sorry, not custom. You put it into your plugins, I believe. So you go to resources, plugins. Once you go to plugins, and then you're supposed to have it. Here it is. So the Librine plugin is inside of it, right? That's why you Xplane 11. Now, Why is that very important to have the liberating? Obviously, like I said, it makes, you have rain effects and you can be able to see those rain effects. Let's get to Xplane, for example, Xplane 11. And if you go to liberating, alright, like I said, with liberating, you get a few things that adds, as you see here, how to add rain effects. You know how to add rain effects, that's Xplane 11, and you can see here, hopefully you can see here, look how the rain effects are. But that's those aircraft, or the aircrafts that are actually compatible, right? Because not all the aircrafts are actually compatible, right? Now, the difference, one of the key differences is that in Xplane 12, for example, in Xplane 12, you don't have that. You don't actually have liberating anymore because it's already embedded in Xplane 12 completely, right? So it's already embedded in Xplane 12 completely. So what happened is that it's easier to actually just use it with Xplane 12. Well, actually, probably that's one of the difference anyway, with Xplane 12, and then it makes it, you're actually gonna get all of these, 3D, 3D rain effects and stuff like that in pretty much almost all the aircrafts, right? Because the developers from Xplane 12, when they're creating those aircrafts, they created it with the rain effect already embedded in the Xplane 12 core, not sim core, right? And that's one of the things that makes Xplane 12 something that people actually decide, what, they'll actually go to Xplane 12 instead. Give me a second here. Okay. Alright. So hopefully you guys hear me pretty well. Now, I hope in the audio is not too bad. So just give me a quick second here. Let me just check everything and make sure the audio is pretty well. Okay, so yeah, so as I was saying, like in terms of Xplane 12, yeah, so the liberating is already naturally in the aircraft, in the sim, so now you can actually get those rain effects, pretty much already in the sim. So actually, you're gonna be able to, like I said, get all these rain effects and be able to make it. How good is it? It's pretty good. I would say it's pretty good. It's pretty okay, I would say, and I don't think there is a proper realistic way of actually showing the rain. So I don't think people should critique too much about how the rain probably looks on the aircraft, on the sim itself, because whether it's Microsoft or anyone, in the real world, how it looks, it looks pretty much the same. Good day, mate. Yes, man. Good day, Qantas. Pilot, good to see you. Good to have you. Good to have you. Welcome here. And I was just talking about liberating, pretty much in this segment here. That's what I'm talking about, liberating in terms of Xplane 11 versus Xplane 12. Now, I say it might sound a little bit too loud, but probably not too loud. You guys can actually let me know. Yeah. So, what do you think in terms of like Xplane 12 versus 11 in terms of the rain effects? Are the rain effects pretty okay, or pretty much not all that okay? So if I come back here, yeah, you can see it here. The rain effects, it looks pretty okay. I'm just using one of these streamers here, in terms of how he shows the rain effects. So that's something that's already embedded in Xplane 12. So you don't have to actually get rain effects in Xplane 12. You already actually have that rain effect embedded in Xplane 12. So you can see that, but not all aircrafts are actually compatible with this rain effect, but majority of them is in fact compatible. Xplane 11 is okay for back in the day. Okay, so let me get my cursor on so you guys can actually see. All right, good. Yeah. So you're saying Xplane 12 is for more or less back in the day? Okay, I agree. I would agree to a good extent, because I mean the things in current world right now, in terms of flight sim, you can pretty much get everything right now in flight sim right now. So in another segment, obviously, in probably the last segment, we'll dive a little bit more into the FPS and all this kind of stuff, and that might be a major contributing factor to a lot of people, whether they want to get FPS or whether whether your internet, for example, if you're living in parts of the world like Lebanon or because majority, probably about 70%, if I can remember, of the world is pretty much in the poverty line, right? And within this poverty line, quite a lot of countries actually don't have sustainable internet. So can you stream? That's the question. And not many people can actually stream still in the world today. So you can have a sim that runs and still enjoy yourself without internet. So I think that's one of the things that a lot of people. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are actually going to take into consideration. So that's one thing in terms of laboring with Xplane 11 versus Xplane 12. You're gonna be able to get those. Well, like I said, like I show you a while ago, this wonderful looking rain particles and all this kind of stuff here. And I mean, that's the difference between Xplane 11 and 12. So you don't need that anymore in Xplane 12 because it's already embedded in the SIM core. So I'm gonna take us to another one. In terms of the differences here. Follow contour, right? The follow contour lines. So the follow contour lines, right? The follow contour lines is pretty much, in Xplane 12, obviously the airports aren't just flat, right? They aren't like flat like a pen, right? The airports obviously pretty much sloped and stuff like that, right? So in Xplane 12 is trying to use all the things that Xplane 11 was missing and pretty much embedded in Xplane 12, which is good. So we're going to talk about, like I said, we're talking about these things here now. And the follow contour, it has its issues and it doesn't have its issues. Some of the issues are, people would say, or some developers argue, in Xplane 12, it's very difficult for them to get the airport meshing with all of these other, with the scenery around, knowing that it has contours in Xplane 12, which is already automatically in Xplane 12. So in other words, developers, so if you're trying to take a Xplane 11 scenery and you try to put it compatible with Xplane 12, yes, it might be compatible, but the issue is that it might not be able to follow the terrain and stuff like that, and you're gonna get like the airport looking a little bit like on top or below sort of thing. Scenery is not gonna fully mesh, and that's one of the issues that I would say people are actually having. So some people have actually argued with it, and some people have argued against it. Now, I would say, is it a need to have the follow contour? Now, there's a way you can actually change certain things in the sim to actually be able to use those Xplane 11 sceneries with Xplane 12, because the Xplane 11 sceneries would have without contour. So I can actually show you something that I believe a lot of people actually haven't done yet, or probably not too familiar with it, I would say now. So if I bring you back to desktop screen, so let's go back in Xplane 11. if you go into custom scenery, and I believe there's something called global airports, right? You go in global airports. This file here, right? They'll have a app.dat file, right? Or airport.dat file. Inside this file, you would actually open this file with Notepad, right? So just give it a second and let it load up. Pretty much these are the schedule here. So that's the schedule. Okay, so instead of apologize here, yes. Really apologize. That was just my phone that just fell. So I apologize for that. Right, instead of this file here, you're gonna see a lot of data here. So if you come and search for, let's say you find like an airport called TAPA. Hello? Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi, hi, hi. How are you?
We good, we good.
Good to have you guys. Good to have you guys. How are you guys?
Yes, yes.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good, we're doing good.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, so I was
Heading on the Holland.
okay, nice, nice, nice. Good, good. So I'm actually here discussing follow contours. I can hear you, I can hear you. Sim, right? That's Sim pilot. I can hear you. Yeah, so I was actually talking about the follow contour, like in terms of Xplane 11 versus Xplane 12. And
okay, so
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
My thoughts on Xplane 11 are or two on like the I did one that was going from like a short haul from Edinburgh to Newcastle, and like at the time the graphics they're not awful, but they're not great, and as well as the airplane physics.
Okay.
For example, when I was flying the 737,
okay,
and like when I was like coming into land and did like what a 737 like would have done, it just was not responding to the controls that I've got implemented into it.
And that's in Xplane 11, you said?
Yeah, 11, yeah.
Uh-huh.
My one is that first time for us say yeah racing make you seem a little bit more than for you.
Yeah, and like when because like I was flying not only to Newcastle, but I did from Gibraltar as well, and like sometimes the cockpit of the 737, I tried deploying the landing gear manually for the landing gear down, and like it would sometimes just stick in the middle, so like it'll be armed for deployment.
Right.
And then when I coming into like very short final, the landing gear just will not come down. And I thought
that does happen because one time I was landing in Santiago and I deployed my reversers and nothing came out, like no, and I had my system, and nothing came out.
Oh, wow.
It was only
yeah, I think if I can remember, because when I was using Xplane 11 a lot back in the days, I remember people having all of these issues, landing gear issues. Definitely the graphics issues for sure was a major issue. And
yes, and also the Xplane 11 light is be very scary, like it's not like it has no lights and stuff and stuff.
Yeah, which is actually another point. I think people would say Xplane, because we're talking about the vanilla sim. We're not talking too much about the mods, but the vanilla sim, the lighting obviously in Xplane 11 it wasn't great. It wasn't great at all. The graphics, like you said, things were sticking. The input lags was really bad. I remember clearly when you unplug some things in Xplane 11, the sim would crash. and all. So they had these issues where the sim would just crash when you had. Now I believe Microsoft 2020 actually had that issue for a few updates,
They're
and
not any better.
but they didn't get any better anyway because they was
Yeah.
crashing quite a lot too. So
Yeah. Especially with the new, it's crashing like hell.
yeah, because I don't know. I've tried things with Microsoft 2024 and I've gotten so many crashes just things unplugging. I don't even know. Like it's just things. I got two free crashes within the first week, and I was already furious about the sim already because I was like I fed up with the sim. No, I didn't. I just didn't like it, to be honest.
Yeah, so I was playing on my friend's computer like a couple of days ago, the Xplane 12.
Right.
Now, if I'm understanding, there was they've added the Airbus A330,
Um,
the A330, and
mm,
I was looking at. I first loaded in. What the hell is this? And like it just looks old. Like like when you get those
yeah. y-
pixelated
Yeah.
cockpits and
Yeah. Which is actually another key problem of I believe is a major issue that
I
I really want Laminar to address because it the volumetric way nature of the sim in terms of like I guess how you put it, the pixel more resolution, right, to get more data points so you can see more curvy things are pretty block like regardless whether it's Xplane 11 or 12. So
yeah,
in the A350 I was very disappointed with the A350 in terms of just the model, right? In terms of texturing and stuff, right? That was a perfect example to use. The aircraft is very good, right? The aircraft is good, I believe, in terms of the how it performs, the engine, how it, stuff like that. Fine,
yeah.
but the modeling, the textures in Xplane 12, which is or 11 or 12, is where I think everyone's gonna just dislike Xplane because it's just not enough resolution. Now,
Yeah.
the thing is, whether this is actually a plan to actually reduce in terms of trying to get better FPS, that could
Yeah.
be arguably a point that Xplane has compared to Microsoft because you
Oh yeah.
you get degradation in Xplane. Sorry, in Microsoft with all of these 3D type of more volumetric, more data points, texturing and stuff like that. You get degradation within the first 2 hours of flying the sim. You get degradation. I don't get degradation. I haven't gotten degradation over some years, but now with Xplane 12, it's obviously bad. But the degradation is not really there in the sim because there isn't a lot of data to keep drawing. So
Yeah.
Xplane can actually say, or Laminar can actually say that this is pretty much a good thing. So if you don't want constant degradation, you have to keep tweaking the sim because majority of all the streamers and even people that are using the sim in Microsoft, they tweak the sim heavy to run the sim every day. So
Yeah.
Xplane, you don't necessarily need to tweak Xplane. You can just have it just pretty much go with how the detail
Yeah.
looks, and so it's really your choice, really.
in my opinion, I find vanilla Xplane is feel very arcade-ish, like old school, without mods and add-ons.
Hmm.
Which actually brings to a next point, by the way, about so if you can Xplane 12
Hmm.
and
Right.
similarly to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020,
Yeah.
those three together is some of the developers, like, I'm not saying they're bad developers, but there's some room and improvements. Like, so for example, the Airbus A330, which is probably one of my favorite planes to fly.
Hmm.
Now in the MSFA, I was recently flying the Qantas A330-900 by Latin Far. and I was doing a Melbourne to Sydney flight, and all of a sudden when I was coming to land, it falls into the physics category with the 737 and Xplane 11. Like when you deploy the landing gear, it literally should prevent you from stalling out the sky. Then again, like when I'm about to touch down, literally like to idle, all of a sudden you lost like 20 knots, and you literally just crash into the ground with the nose gear first.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm like,
that's Microsoft issue there, isn't it?
yeah, but quite like, I mean, the texturing is really good. I like the A330 cockpit, really nice. I must admit that. Like, because I like to fly all the Airbus planes. I do fly occasionally the 777 and the 7 to represent real life routes by them. So I thought it was quite a nice touch as well.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of quotes, right? And I think people probably don't look at these things into much detail, and they pretty much just criticize whichever. They criticize Sims, and I believe all of the Sims have their own issues, right? I believe, and
Yeah, because like
True,
these
true,
aren't their
true.
full-time jobs. They're volunteers. They volunteer to do Sims and all
right,
that, to develop it, to make like really good Sims for everyone around the world.
right,
And
right,
like take the fly-by-wire. It was like what, 5 years in the making, and like everyone's got
exactly,
it for free. So it's a full-time.
yeah,
It's a voluntary service. They're not getting paid for it.
right,
Kind of freeware. So, and I feel like people just need to like chill out on like being,
yeah,
one for impatient, and like these guys have got separate lives when they're implementing into the sim.
right, exactly. I mean, I made that point in one of my streams. Now, I was actually encouraging people to use more the freeware stuff, because I believe in pretty much all the sims, whether it's Xplane 11, 12, or Microsoft, they have a lot of free developers and all these guys, volunteers, and they're pretty much doing very well in terms of creating all of this, I would say really, really good sceneries or add-ons for flight sim. And I think that in itself is really commendable for them to actually be doing all of that for flights. So for example, I think, well, I remember now, Mr. X is actually part of now the Laminar team. Mr. X, which is really, really, really wonderful, because I mean, even if the scenery that he has, the SFD, whether it's Boston or Los Angeles, and SFD, I would say by far is great, is best than many, many other developers. But he has some freeware SFD scenery in, the Xplane.org, the freeware place. Like, for example, the Boston one, the Boston scenery I have is actually the freeware one, and that's really, really great. Like, the scenery is really, really, really nice. So I think like the developers, the freeware developers, or the volunteers, really need to get a lot of credit for actually creating the sims, to actually make the sims be just as good that you want to buy the sim. Because when Microsoft came out, pretty much a lot of the fly-by-wire, for example, was probably one of the reasons why people even decided they want to fly with Microsoft. They want to use Microsoft. So
absolutely,
Zibo, when Zibo, the entire Zibo team decided, design this to explain everyone's, So I think the sim itself,
Drama.
yeah, the Max drama, but the sim itself, I would say for none of them actually is really all that good without the developers, the freeware developers. And I mean, there's a lot of people complaining and making noise and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's necessary. I feel like all the sims, I believe, has a place in the market. Now, I mean, in this podcast, we're pretty much talking about Xplane 11 versus 12. I mean, whether Laminar still has a position in the market to all its sims. That's
Oh yeah.
yeah, but
Xplane 11. In my opinion, the default clouds are very horrible. Like the volumetric cloud, the default volumetric, too realistic and no textures at all. So you gotta download kind of mods and add-ons
yeah,
to make it
and I
tweak it
can
a little bit.
and I think I'll put up on the screen some of Xplane 11 scenery. The cloud. I believe you had some scenery.
Enhanced
You did a
skyscrapes.
flight. You did a flight with the Xplane 11, and the clouds look really terrible in Xplane 11. Compared
Yes,
to
I
compared
think
to
I do have a picture of how the
yeah,
default cloud.
compared to in Xplane 12. I mean, I would say does the clouds still look okay in Xplane 12? I would say because you're looking at the comparison between Xplane 11 versus 12
Yeah.
versus 12, arguably they have volumetric clouds, right? So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to criticize and say the volumetric clouds in Xplane 12 is not
Yeah.
great.
At the end of the day, all it is just a simulator.
Eh,
It's a game.
right,
It's not meant
right,
to,
right,
it's not meant to be top tier or
right,
something that you're gonna go spending because every couple of years they're coming.
right, exactly. And it's just a bit weird. Actually, somebody actually posted up a picture just this morning. At Blizzard, he posted a picture of the Xplane 11 clouds. So I'm gonna put that up on screen. I believe that's just the Xplane 11. I believe it's a little bit tweaked from some of the the freeware. The freeware enhancers you get on Xplane of,
Yeah.
and he posted up this picture which I'm gonna show up now on screen. On my Xplane. I'm sorry, on the live. And I mean, we're looking at that clouds here in Xplane 11. You can see it doesn't look like it have any sort of how would I put it? If you go, when you're going into the clouds, like you have to be fading into the clouds,
Yeah.
and you don't really get that. Even in Microsoft, and I criticize Microsoft as well a bit to some point.
Yeah, I mean, I like, but only fairly. And
Yeah,
when like that, for example, when you're taking off from a runway and you're climbing out through the clouds, compare 2020 to 11 or looking through the clouds, you can just actually see a little bit of a nicer what one for a better word, kind of like nice breakthrough for the clouds. Like when you turn on that pilot and you can just watch breaking through and seeing the sun come up.
right. I understand. I understand exactly. Like, I think obviously in Xplane 11, the thing called in Microsoft obviously has it, which is the ray.
Oh, yeah.
I believe they call it the Raychard, which is the ray. I believe it's Raychard they call it.
Yeah.
That's like the lighting, goes through the clouds. You can see the clouds when you go at different angles within the clouds. You can get the lighting. Now, obviously, Xplane 11 at its start, they didn't really actually have that, so you can't really get no sort of like volumetric lights that makes the clouds look really. So you're gonna get when it's raining, all the clouds look great, right? They don't have no sort of definition. Like you can see differences in the clouds. It's all gonna be looking like all the clouds have rain, right? In Xplane 11, but I mean, kudos to those freeware developers, for actually creating free enhancers that develops the sim, that makes the sim look like you really want to fly the sim. And I don't even think
This brings me to my next topic, to the scenery. I know Laminar Research doesn't have the rights to get free or the money they provide with scenery like Google Maps, Bing Maps and stuff. But the scenery is very repetitive.
Yeah. I I'm aware, obviously, of people actually talking about that point in terms of the scenery and how the scenery looks repetitive. In other words, in Xplane 11, the default scenery is, I mean, even if they say it's OSM data, right? Yes, it's OSM data, but OSM data is pretty much just for pinpointing where landmass is at X, Y, and Z, where trees X, Y, and Z is, right? In certain positions and stuff like that. But that doesn't change the actual ground textures itself, like what type of ground textures is there. So the thing is, Xplane 11 never had that. Xplane 11 never had seasons, which is the next point here. They never had seasons in Xplane 11. So you would never see the different texturing from Los Angeles to New York, you know, to let's say Canada. You're gonna see the same type of same type of trees, same type of ground textures, everything like that in the sim, right? And I think Xplane 12 still didn't actually fix that, because in Xplane 12 I would say you still have the same type of repetitive scenery, ground textures and all that kind of stuff in Xplane. And actually, it's the same issue also in Microsoft 2020, and I believe it's the same issue in 2024, because I haven't actually really looked into detail on that aspect, but I know for sure within Xplane 12, 11, and Microsoft 2020, they still have that repetitive ground layout. Like everywhere you go, it's the same type of ground layout. So I mean, in seasons. All right, go ahead.
Because the scenery as well, it's like, when you go in the marketplace, like you see 5 stars and you check normally you put images on it and see how good it is. So for example, I bought like ports in 20, and like I was of the comparison between them two, and they're not bad, honestly. See filter when I bought that, it was actually quite nice. It was highly detailed as well as some makers in 2020.
Oh, right. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I mean I would say it's a lot. I mean, how would I put it?
It's a lot of time and effort they put into it.
Now, I've observed there's ways to combat some of these things. Like, if you're somebody that really deep into flight sim, I mean, not because I'm a streamer, then you might, you might be trying to figure out things and try to see how you can fix things. Now, one way I've actually figured out something, and I'll show on screen. In terms of actually the Xplane 11, you can actually get the Xplane 11 like seasons and stuff like that if you go into, if you put certain things there. Now, I have a the fly with lure. Let me show up on screen here. Where is it? Fly with lures. Where plugins. Right. Go in plugins, and my fly with lure, I believe, is in the scripts. Was it in plugins itself? Because I actually modded and I actually got seasons, but the way I got the seasons was through something. Oh, right. It was a Python script. Right? It was a Python. So I think back in the days, if you guys remember, to actually get season, you can get automatic seasons if you go through this thing now, this Python script thing. Now I'll actually go on I'll Google Xplane 11 seasons. Now there's you could get a payware one, which is the Teramax, right, which will give you the automatic thing, or you can actually use the 4 seasons, which I have up on screen. I believe you guys are supposed to see that. The 4 seasons, which is now compatible with seasonal packages. Now that's for Xplane 11.
Yeah.
Now I have this entire script running. I actually have it running completely. Now the old way of actually setting it up was very difficult for a lot of people. I actually have the new way, which is through the the they call it the XP Python free, which is the new way of actually getting it, which is so much easier. You just pretty much get that, you go through the process through the online, the way they tell you to do it, the new way, and you follow the threads, the guidelines that they give of or the documentation itself of how to go about it, which I have up on screen now. Pretty much, well, it's loading in here. Just say, right, here it is on screen. So you have that, you go through that entire process. Here you see there's the what it does in terms of changes the season. Now apparently it's loading in very slow here. Okay, here it is. Now when I actually got everything to run with the entire season for Xplane 11, I actually found out because I did the test. I did an entire test and everything, and it worked exactly like that. I changed the timing to January to see whether there was snow compared to like July, and it actually did work. Yeah. So yet again, kudos to another freeware developer for actually creating and making this thing, usable to the public. Now, Xplane 12, obviously, on screen, I'm actually showing you guys Xplane 12 seasons. So obviously Xplane 12 took one of that issue of having seasons, and now they embed it in Xplane 12. So you get seasons, so you don't actually have to go through that whole trying to create, season, or implement the season thing, which is great. So now you can get snow and all that kind of stuff on the ground and stuff like that. In Xplane 12, which is great. One issue I have found in terms of all of that, so let me come off the screen now. One issue I found in terms of that is the trees still look as bad. Now, I don't know what you guys think. So what do you guys think? For me, I still feel like the trees looks a little bit bad in Xplane 12.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And as well, I would say in terms of what Jaden was saying about the repetitiveness of the ground textures. I mean, in Xplane 12, they still have the repetitiveness, I would say, of the like we said a while ago, of the ground textures. So even if the seasons is there, yes, you get trees now. And Hergrim's Jarrell, yes, they look like 2D trees. Exactly right. So Jarrell here is saying they look like 2D trees. Exactly, they still look 2D trees. They still have 2D trees, even if it's Xplane 12, which is supposed to be volumetric now. The trees, even if they do look sort of volumetric in a way, but they still look sort of like, if you zoom in closely to the trees, they still look sort of like they're not 3D, they're not fully 3D.
Just chat. They look like these.
Yeah, they look like, I mean, I don't want to blame, I don't want to, we're not here blaming, anybody for saying, we paying us something that's great.
Effort. They probably been like half of these developers probably would have been like separated from their families and wives or that kind of thing to do this sim more than they are spending time with them, because like probably about 50% of the time they're probably doing this and they're with them. Then the next day it'll be the same process over and over again.
Yeah, so how do we fix So how do we fix that? When will they fix it? That's the question. When will they get to that point? Because in Microsoft, I looked at Microsoft. I've been in Microsoft, and and I believe none of the trees are actually, in the Sims are actually looking like proper trees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of weird. trying to say it's a bad like the Xplane 12 and 11 are bad games or sims. I just think words without being so judgmental.
No.
You know, so think of Xplane 11 and probably a cheaper version, if that makes sense.
Okay, so okay, I understand, right? I understand. So the question now is, if that is the case that they're making the trees so much a cheaper version, a cheaper way of it, then that means that Xplane 11 trees are no different to Microsoft then, because they all have a cheaper tree. So I don't think that's somewhere that anybody should be criticizing trees in any of the sims, you know. But because I've seen some trees in positions in Microsoft, whether it's 2020 or 2024, the trees are actually in some weird positions, and they're like big. They're like big trees, you know, like that's not the trees there in the right.
Microsoft Isolator, like before the runway threshold, it's very big trees. So sometimes you glide so fast, you glide so fast, it's true, but the trees, so you hit like a branch or something, and it makes it very unrealistic.
Yeah, so exactly. So when we thought that Microsoft was gonna give us proper, you know, we be like, oh wow, yes. I mean, you still get trees in positions that you have to get a lot of tweaks. Now that's the issue I had the most with Microsoft. Now I don't really want to talk too much about Microsoft, right? But that's the issue I had the most with Microsoft, that I thought we were gonna get everything that's already well in the sim, and I have like about 300 gigs worth of tweaks, sort of like add-on things to be able to make the sim look even better with 2020. And I'm like, I thought the sim was gonna be great. Like I don't have to actually keep buying, and that's the point that I'm actually raising with this podcast, really. Now this one is not Xplane versus Microsoft, so I'm not, you know, that's gonna come later on. We're just gonna talk about Xplane 11 versus 12, but we can just look at how you have to keep adding things. In terms of Xplane 12, you still have to add a lot of things to Xplane 12 to still look good.
Yeah, so like trees, especially in 12 and 11, kind of similar, or if not the exact same. You know, like Xplane 12 and 11.
Right.
Because, like, for example, I was landing in an airport, just like so big, like, you know, I was like, last time I checked, they were not this high or this big, especially when the gear on a big air 330, you know, that front nose landing gear is probably touching those trees.
Yes, that's true.
Or for even the A380, I've had that mod as well, and like the front undercarriage wheels are like so big, you know, they're about to scrape the runway or scrape the tree.
I used to look at it a lot, and I was like, because that used to affect a lot of my landings too, because I was like, you know, I have to try to keep up, and I'm like, okay, the puppy looks like he's trying to tell me I have to go straight through the bush. But yeah, so that was something, you know, definitely I think I mean, in all of the scenes, I feel like they have to tweak that. Jarrell says yes, the trees, it look like pixelated, you know.
I think this is a very known issue, but excessive amount of mods to make it look very appealing, better, like sceneries and stuff, like auto for XP and stuff.
Yeah, so the other day I was making a point that if those developers, like how SFD, Mr. X, right, how Mr. X actually came along with Laminar, because, you know, Mr. X does a lot of great sceneries, and, you know, now he's actually part of the entire Laminar team, which is great. So, you know, the person who did auto offer, right, for Xplane 12, then these developers, like, why aren't these developers actually part of the whole Laminar team in the first place, or even Microsoft as well too? Because I mean, Bing Maps, for example, that, you know, the whole map mod thing for 2020, why in the first place, why is the sceneries in Microsoft 2020? Because if they're streaming the data, right, which is supposed to give you Bing Maps, why is it that they had to actually have an updated Bing Maps for 2020 that makes it look that makes it look more real? And I'm like, but not the entire world is in green, so why is Microsoft green everywhere you go? I thought I was supposed to be streaming data, that I was supposed to be part of it from the beginning. So why everywhere I go it looks green, man? Like I just didn't like Microsoft for that part, because it's like one color, right? And I didn't actually like that, like one ground sort of like colors and stuff. So that was a little bit of an issue. But anyways, like I said, this is Xplane 11 versus 12. And
I've got a question for you,
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Or both, actually. As part of playing 11. So when you first game, you are first launching into an aircraft of your choosing that you perhaps love or perhaps you never flown before, and you take than the the not graphics but like textures, for so to speak, for the land. You're saying that everything was quite like a lot of green, and like when you're on Xplane 11 and 12, like they're kind of similar. Like the land textures, they're still green all over the place, and the ocean, it's okay, but I think there could be a great deal of like I think it's just alpha kind of stage of the game.
right. Yeah, because I mean, if you look at how now I have auto running for both Xplane and 11 and 12, and the auto pretty much is just the ground textures, right? It replaces the entire ground textures, and it makes the ground textures look exactly like how it is in the real world. Because the auto pretty much uses the OSM based on the mesh and stuff like that. That obviously, based on its entire system, actually takes the data to actually, based on whether it's Bing Maps or Google, Bing Maps, whichever one, whether it's Google, and actually filters that actual real world OSM data from that. Now, Microsoft supposed to have done that, which they did not. Even if they do show Bing Maps, but they show the Bing Maps that is not really changing color and stuff like that. So that was a little bit of an issue.
In my opinion, Microsoft Bing Maps to use Google.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Now, I think one thing that people are having, or actually one of the big issues people are having, is contour, right? Now that would be one of the things that actually, I mean, I spoke a little bit about it a while ago, but we'll come back to that now, because we already addressed the lighting. The lighting Xplane 11 compared to 12. I mean, that's already looking better, obviously, with Xplane 12. How good is it? I think it's okay. I'll just put it that way. It's okay. The volumetric, because remember, we're not gonna argue whether the 3D volumetric clouds in Xplane 11 versus 12, or whether volumetric clouds in Microsoft is really real world. As long as it is 3D volumetric, that's all we're talking about right now in this segment. The lighting as well, whether the lighting looks a little bit more realistic in Xplane 11 compared to 12, so we can see a big difference there. The rain effect in Xplane 11 compared to 12. Now with the Librane makes the Xplane 11 aircrafts, have, like, for example, Zeebo had that implemented. So some of them actually have it, whereas Xplane 12 has it embedded already in the new sim. So that was a big advance that would make people feel like, it's a good reason to actually have Xplane 12, because you don't have to tweak too much of the whether it's the scenery colors, whether it's the the things like rain effects, stuff like that. But I have a software called Visual XP that literally changes how the lighting looks in both scenery and everything, both the lights, actually actual lights, the street lights and all that kind of stuff in Xplane. So I believe, like I said, I'm not going to argue about whether it looks more realistic and stuff, but at least you can see a difference between Xplane 11 versus 12.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can see a difference there. So that's, but one of the things that strikes me the most here, which is pretty much the last thing, we know, like I said, we talk about seasons already. Xplane 12 has seasons. We're not going to talk about how good it is or how not, but you can see a big difference there already. But the last thing I have here, which I was talking a little bit about earlier, was the follow contour, because in Xplane 11, which I don't understand why in the first place they never had contour. Like, why was that not even embedded at like completely in the same, like to actually have scenery that is following the contour? If you know what I mean, like the airports in the world aren't flat, aren't flat. So a lot of the airports or the airport developers in Xplane 11 have their scenery completely flat. Don't know why. I don't know why. Because I used to have issues where I want to see land where the runway, it says an elevating runway. So when you're looking at the performance, when you're looking at the calculation performance, you factor in the incline or decline. There wasn't any of that really in Xplane 11.
Yeah, it's true.
Flat.
It was just flat. So
yeah.
Xplane 12 obviously went ahead and pretty much embed that. So embed that in the sim. Now I'm not going to talk too much about the issues that it created, because a lot of people have been in the forums and people are complaining about their sceneries. The scenery some scenery developers still creating scenery that is flat in Xplane 12 and it doesn't mesh, because the scenery developer created something that is flat, and then when you put it in Xplane in the Xplane 12 that you bought, it doesn't mesh properly. You have to actually get compatibility stuff. Like Flight Tampa, for example. Flight Tampa had that issue where Boston, I think Vegas as well, Vegas for Xplane 12 had that issue where you could not get Vegas to work well because the elevation issues and whatever. So you have to actually find a patch, get the patch and stuff like that. And that patch was to try to deal with the compatibility in terms of trying to get the elevations X, Y, and Z. Now, you're saying something?
What I have seen is they don't like have a good presentation, like different colors.
Wait, say that just now. Say that again, because I didn't hear that too clear.
I was saying most flight simulators don't have like proper cloud type, like cumulus nimbus, all the stuff and things, like multiple types of stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends on. It really depends on what you really want, I guess, when it comes to this salesman, because it's whether you want whether you want a little bit of this or a little bit of that, So I just think like they all have a position, but we'll get to that. They all have a position in the flight sim community. Like I said, one of the biggest thing is Xplane 11 is not streamed, and there's not a lot of data points, so you get very good FPS. It's not streaming, not streaming data. So if you're somebody that lives in like Lebanon, I mean, no offense to the Lebanese, they're gonna be able to like still be able to play. People that are living in Pakistan, they're still gonna be able to play with, whether they have internet or whether power, they're still gonna be able to play the game and still fly and enjoy playing flight sim. So they don't actually have to have Microsoft, but they could still use Xplane 11 and have a very good sim, because it's not stream based really, and still fly around. So that is something that people actually have to look at. Well, I don't think they look at that. But anyways, coming back to the follow contour, just to finish off on that. Actually, if I show you guys, in the settings, because I have the sim open here, and I actually forgot one thing which I was supposed to talk about, which I actually didn't discuss. But Xplane 11 compared to Xplane 12, where does Xplane 11? I think Xplane 11 has Vulkan. Xplane 11 has a Vulkan driver. Now we're not going to talk too much about these drivers and all this kind of stuff, but Xplane 11 has a driver, to be able to render all of that stuff instead of using the OpenGL. Whereas Xplane 12 has Zinc, which eventually they got the Zinc to work properly, because the Zinc thing wasn't really working too well with Xplane 12. But now they've actually got it to work. So now you can use it as an API, basically as an API to render the sim at a better, a lot faster than the actual the driver, the default driver, like the OpenGL. Now in here, hopefully you guys see on my screen, there's a section that says, here it is, the follow terrain contours, right? So Xplane 12 obviously got that embedded fully they got it embedded fully into Xplane 12. Now we're not going to talk too much about blackouts. They have simulate blackouts, stuff like hypoxia effects, which Microsoft never had any of these sort of things. So you can actually get hypoxia, all these things, man, in the sim. Like
when you lose like your cabin altitude,
cabin
high and stuff, and you start a blackout and stuff in the cockpit.
Right, you start a blackout. So that's what I'm saying, that Xplane still has quite a lot to it. Let me put it full screen instead. Xplane still has a lot here, as you can see on my screen. They still have a lot of things that is good to them. Blackouts, like I said, blackouts. You can even actually use the experimental model to actually see what's going on, like see what the wind is doing and all that kind of stuff. Now I realize in Microsoft 2024, you can use the 3D thermal thing and see what the wind is, how the wind is blowing, where it is. You can actually, but obviously before, people used to wonder what's going on in terms of the wind in the sim, because the sim was very chaotic, very unstable in terms of how wind flow and stuff like that. Now Xplane 11 had that issue. It still has that issue in terms of lower winds and upper winds. But if you get software like Active Sky, which I actually have Active Sky here, once you use like Active Sky XP, then that gives you both upper air, and stuff like that, upper and lower, so you can actually get proper wind data and all that kind of stuff. So Xplane 12 obviously can use that as well too with XP and stuff like that and still get that. So we're not going to talk about it. But like I said, the big issue people had was the follow contour thing, which was a big issue, because you would try to follow, like some sceneries just didn't have the sort of you can actually see the elevation, because I look at it a lot. I don't know about other people, I don't know if they actually look at these things, but I always look at the airport, see whether the elevation is a incline or declining and stuff like that, because I've realized that in Xplane it's so much more realistic, because when I'm coming to land, because sometimes the airport has an incline of, like, let's say plus 0.4 incline percent, and when you try to pull back the stick to try to flare, and sometimes you don't flare enough because the incline is coming up, it's coming on you, and then you end up with like a score of still 300 because you didn't realize that there's a big an incline. So that's something I like about when it comes to Xplane 12 with the embedded. But obviously in Xplane 11, if you wanted to put that, you can put it if you wanted, the follow contour thing, and I believe that makes a big difference. Jarrell here said, does Xplane 12 flight models per frame work or not? But I said, the flight models per frame work or not? Actually, they do. The flight models, they actually, I would say they actually do. That's just my experience, but I don't know how other people might see it. But for me, I find the flight models in Xplane, whether it's 12, 11, I find like they fly the same way. They pretty much fly the same way. I don't know what you guys feel. Have you guys ever found that? Like how does it, if you guys have Xplane 12? I have Xplane 12 and 11. So I've found like the models sort of like pretty much flies almost the same. Pretty much that's what I found. So I don't know what you guys think.
12.
If you
Yeah,
guys
so
or if you guys have noticed it in any videos, or not too sure.
a very
Um,
recently, like hours ago, on Xplane 12, and what you're saying about the blah, 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 kind of like the flare
yes,
like
yeah,
I was comparing my experience in 11 and his in 12, and when I do when it tells me to, or just
mm,
before touchdown,
yeah.
like when you bring the thrust back, it delays by a couple of seconds, and then it starts bringing all the thrust back.
Mm.
Okay, a bug that's going on, or my controls need to be
I think
recalibrated.
it could be your controls, because you can actually use the key the curves and stuff like that to actually get all of that well designed, which I think, again, I'm not gonna we're not gonna compare Xplane versus 12, but the way you can actually control your curve to get like your to get whether to get a bit of a delay in terms of how the control stick is. I like that in Xplane. It looks so much realistic. I believe you can control how much, because some controllers might be a little bit more stiff compared to the next, so you can actually tweak that to make it a little bit more real like.
Yeah,
And I think in Xplane, that's why I love Xplane. I know everybody knows that I love Xplane. Like, I would fly on Xplane every day if I have to fly on Xplane, because I love that the flight modeling, the way you can change to make it feel realistic in terms of how you fly, like how you bend. Imagine you can make a A380 look as light or as heavy. With the
yeah,
So if you want to make it look heavy, you can just change the curve and make it look like, even if you move the yoke, the ailerons fully left, it doesn't go fully left. Like the yoke, it doesn't go fully left. So it actually takes its time to gradually goes left and stuff like that. So that's really, really, really nice. I like about Xplane, regardless if it's Xplane 11 or 12.
I like. Oh, sorry. The reason why I like X-Plane is the realism turns up. So like I was sorry, not watching. I was playing 12. Sorry,
Mm,
and my whole I got my total payload of the entire aircraft
mm,
on a quite a long, medium-sized runway, runway 09er, in America, and my thrust speeds were, and like when Airbus A330 with the cycle that I've got,
wait,
and then the realism they put into it when it takes a while, you're off the ground because you're that heavy. So
yeah,
obviously you're going to take a couple seconds to bring the nose up,
right, right,
and
right,
it takes a couple of extra knots, like 5 extra knots. Then you can get the aircraft fully airborne.
right, right.
That's what I quite like about 12 and
Yeah.
A3.
Now I've noticed. I mean, these things, it is different in Xplane 11 versus 12. Like, I've noticed they've actually, like I said, they fixed a few things in terms of how like the thrust is, for sure. Because I've noticed in Xplane 11 I had issues with that thrust, the thrusting. Like, it was thrusting too fast in Xplane 11, right?
Oh yeah,
And yeah, it was thrusting way too fast. Like, the engines, as soon as you pay, it just goes, right? And then I don't think there was actually in Xplane 11 they wasn't actually catering for like runway, like how much runway, um, the runway length that the aircraft would use. Like, if it says it uses 1,000 meters to stop, it didn't matter what aircraft or whether the aircraft, it still wouldn't. It would probably use way less or way more or something like that. It just wasn't really looking at the actual performance stuff, right? When
yeah,
it comes to Xplane 11. So that didn't matter whether the runway was wet or rather the runway was dry. That's,
yeah.
it didn't really matter about that in Xplane 11 at all. Now Xplane 12, I've, I would say I have noticed to quite a lot of this extent, it sort of has a little bit more accuracy. And that's what I found in terms of when I did a lot of testing and stuff. I've noticed that it has looked a little bit more realistic in terms of how much runway it uses up and stuff like that in terms of whether it's wet or. Now, I don't know if it's. I don't think it is. I don't know how to put it. Because there is rain effects and all that kind of stuff on the runway and stuff like that. Now, you know,
about explaining realism, that like the real looking effects on the windscreen when it's raining.
All right, so Lincoln is here. What's up? What's up, Links? Link, was that Link on you? Okay, nice to be here. Good to have you here. Good to have you here. Yeah, so we're just discussing a few things here. So go ahead again. Flightsim pilot. Sorry. Go ahead again. You was making.
So that's what I like about game sims as well, is the fact that when it rains on the windshield screen,
right.
You know, it like really realistic in terms of its realism of on your windscreen, and when you try to wipe it off,
right,
the wipers like little wipes left on the wind for a few seconds, then it just disappears.
Right. So that looks better on Xplane 12, no doubt, because it's already embedded in it, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite, and it's a bit smoother, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Now,
let me ask you a question.
Yep.
So I don't know if you know how you were saying like 2 minutes ago about the frost. You were having frost issues and
Yep.
Like I don't. Have you ever flown the 737 and 11?
The 737 in terms of not the NG, the 737. Oh.
Yeah, the 737.
Yeah, I've flown the 737. Well, you mean the Zibo one, or you mean?
Yeah. So I don't know if it was just me but like when I was taking on the thrust set, then if you look at your ECAM stats on the engines, little engine panel in the middle, it goes to red. It doesn't like reduce to 1, and like it goes toga. It stays red. So I'm pushing the engines too hard, or
no, it's just no. That issue is actually just. It's not really Xplane 11 or whether it's Xplane 12. It's actually Zibo themselves. So Zibo themselves might probably overpower the engine, right? So they might, because what happened is that whether you're running Xplane 11, the beta version, or you're running the full version. So now the beta version on Xplane, right? So once you're running a beta, they might have some certain deficiencies, right? And one of the deficiencies with the betas I've realized is that you get sometimes thrust power issues, right? Now, the third-party developers, they have to keep tweaking certain things all the time. That's why Zibo gets tweaked all the time, because they get tweaked because the aircraft, they have to have the stable aircraft and they have to have the beta version aircrafts, right? Because they have to keep tweaking theirs to the betas to see how it works to when it gets to the final version, whether that version is 11.3, 11.35, you know, that kind of thing. So sometimes it's just Zibo. Now, that's why I have to update Zibo all the time. I always have to get the latest copy to Zibo just to know whether the actual Zibo, whether the current beta or the latest beta with the latest Zibo, and I can see whether there's an issue. Because Zibo always puts up the update saying X, Y, and Z, or either this, that, fix this, they fix that, and stuff like that. Now, I don't really like that. With these developers, they always have to keep tweaking things over and over and over. I don't really like it, but that's just how it is. So it's not necessarily your thrust. It could be the aircraft itself. Now, I've also noticed that some people have the calibration for like whether it's XP UIPC, right? Now, I'm not gonna dive into that part too much, but the XP UIPC or whether it is the FS UIPC have a bit of an issue in terms of its compatibility, whether it's a beta and stuff like that, and to get the key bindings. So I've actually noticed that because when I used to have some of my key bindings with some of, back in the days, FSX and actually Xplane 11, they used to have some issues with that, with the XP UIPC. So sometimes you throttle hard, and it's just not given. And then when you reach a certain angle or axis, then it will just give thrust, like a maximum thrust or something like that. So it could be as well in either the XP or IPC, the controls there. So that's actually another issue there. Not necessarily the actual software that you actually have. If you're using like a throttle, a thrust, or like a thrust master or something like that. But that's just some of the things I can actually think of. But the betas for sure, the beta could be that the beta, for example, Xplane 11 beta or Xplane 12 beta, they could have erroneous errors that causes things to happen to the aircraft itself. So sometimes it might have certain issues that you would try to accelerate and you realize the aircraft just not getting up, which was an issue in Xplane 11. As much as you tried, the Xplane just wasn't going up at all. You're just not getting no elevation, and then your fuel burns was just bad, terrible, and you wonder what's happening. It's just because of the actual beta itself was having issues with the aircraft. But I think these things could have been tweaked in the Xplane maker. Now I did have to tweak a few things there back in the days because I was playing a lot. I used to just be playing around in this coding type of things constantly over I was just a freak when it comes to flight sim. I just love to know what's happening. So you can actually tweak some of these things. You can actually tweak Xplane 11 aircrafts to overpower the engines and stuff like that from the Xplane maker, which I used to do. So sometimes the engine wasn't working, sometimes in Xplane 11 you get some aircrafts, the engine not really, the right engine not working, not coming on. I'll go in the Xplane maker and stuff, and I'll try to change the binding because some of them are actually electrical bindings compared to air. So sometimes you can just bypass that if it's some air issue. Just put it to electrical instead. So when you run the one engine, it's already giving it electrical flow, and then you'll be able to run the second engine. I mean, that's just tweaks that if you know how to use this software, then you can use that to just to bypass things. You had a degree of being able to tweak things. Like FSX, you could have tweaked everything in FSX. You could have tweaked literally everything in FSX. Every single thing that you wanted to tweak, you could have tweaked from the BIOS, everything. But Xplane, you can tweak certain things, not every single thing. So that's why some aircrafts in Xplane 11 can't fully work in Xplane 12. They would work, but certain things might not. Xplane 11 A350. I say let me try to use my 11 A350 to see if it will work with 12 at the time, and it didn't. It worked, but then the engine wasn't coming on. And I observed. I tried to tweak certain things, see if I can actually, and then I found out the issue was actually the issue was that it wasn't fully compatible. No matter what you tried, the compatibility coding for Xplane 12, it wasn't there in the Xplane 11. So it was just not, you could not start the engine. All you had to do was put the engine on at the start when you log in, when you load the aircraft from the beginning. But you can't try to start it from cold and dark and put the engine on. Then it just wouldn't come on. So that's why some aircrafts wouldn't fully work in terms of compatibility. Same thing with some airports. But you could, like I said a little bit earlier, probably 40 minutes ago, I was showing you guys some of the Xplane 11 sceneries have actually gotten to work with Xplane 12 and to actually mesh. Now,
that's a
yes.
Yeah, that's true because I have some Xplane 9 sceneries on Xplane org, and I got it to work on Xplane 11,
and you could get them.
I might work on Xplane.
Yeah, you some of them would work straight off the bat, and some of them you might have to do a little tweaking if you know how to do the little tweaking. Now, what I've observed is, because I've dug around, and one thing which I'll actually show you guys on screen now. Let me put that up on screen for you guys here. Okay, so if you go to Xplane 11 on screen now, and then you go into custom scenery, like I was saying, and then from your custom scenery in Xplane 11, let's say Xplane 11, let's go to Xplane 12 instead. Sorry, if I go to Xplane 12, and then you go to custom scenery in Xplane 12, and then you go to global airports, right? There's a global airports in Xplane 12. Now, where is it? Global airports, where is the global airports? Global. Okay, just now, why is it not coming up there? Why is it not coming up there? Global. I know it's in Xplane 11. I'll just use Xplane 11 because I know exactly what I'm talking about. If you go in global airports here, alright, here it is, here. Right? If you go in, because some airports don't have the elevation thing, right? Mesh or whatever. Or in other words, you could use Xplane 12 sceneries as well with Xplane 11 and still get the same sort of the elevation and everything to work properly. So like a Lukla Xplane 11 might not work in Xplane 12, but you can actually get it to work. Depends on how you get it tweaked. Now in this file here, which I guess you guys seen on my screen, you can go in the airport dot. At the very bottom, there is a airport.dat file, and I believe I had already opened that file over here. Oh, I just closed it. Alright, so let me reopen it. It might take a second or so. It might take about 2 seconds, probably 4 seconds. Alright, here we go. Alright, so it says generated from whole editor. Inside of here, literally, is like all the airports, all the data in terms of location, all this kind of stuff inside of here. Some airports literally, what I've noticed, some of the airports literally the data files, it might show that the airport is literally like off in terms of the elevation and stuff like that. So you can actually like literally like search for the airports and stuff like that. And then whether you want to get the elevation to actually mesh and stuff like that.
What I like about Xplane 11 and 12 is that it has
my sims
scenery, airports.
Just now, Jaden, you hear me? Alright. Yeah, so I'll come back to your point just now. So here we go. So let me give you an example, right? Here it's saying TAP, I'm using TAPA, right? Which is VC board tamper. And it has flatten equals 1. It has flatten equals 1 because I don't know why, but the sim flattened some of the airports already. They literally put majority of some of the airports, they put it straight flattened. So it don't matter if you have a scenery and the airport is not flat, it flattens it, right? So let me go to Google, right? I'm on Google now. Let me go to, like, for example, TAPA chat, which is VTB.
Yeah, Jefferson chat.
Right. So let me just go to any one of the online. So give it a second, let it load. Okay, so let me go to the actual airport itself and let me look at the elevations, right? So this is a good example. Now it might be a little bit blurry. I don't know if you guys might see it. I'll zoom in a little bit more so that you guys can actually see. Now it might be a little bit blurry, but if you see down here, runway 07, you see that the elevation is 58, right? Correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Right. So it's saying here elevation 57. On the next end, runway 25, sorry, elevation is what? 27. Correct? You guys seen that?
Yeah.
Right. So let me just come in over here. So you see elevation 27 over here. Right? So what happened in here is that obviously you could see that the airport has a down slope, right? Because here is 58, over here is 27. Yeah. Now I've been to Antigua many times and I've seen the slope. Man, the slope in Antigua is very hard. You know, it's very, very hard. The very kind of steepy slope. Right? Yeah. So in the Xplane file, like I showed you guys a while ago, they literally put flatten. So that means that the airport is literally going to show in Xplane 11 completely flat. like one elevation. It's not going to put no double elevation, one elevation. So if you have a third party airport and regardless if you have the third party airport and you put the airport to follow contour, as you see on my screen, even if you put it to follow contour, it's still going to show flat. That's because the actual airport.dat file, which is in global airport in the custom scenery in the Earth nav data, is actually flattened to 0. So the only way to change that, you literally have to put that to 0, right? Because you don't want it flattened. You want it to have the actual elevations, and then you just pretty much press save. That's what you do. You just pretty much change that. You press save. Once you press save, once you press save, then any add-on that you have for that airport, right? Any add-on that you have for that airport is now going to, once the developer has the contour for that scenery, it will follow the scenery as long as you have the follow contour. But that was the issue that Xplane 12 tried to solve, which is why in Xplane 12 you do not have this. You do not have follow terrain contour. They already have it embedded. That's why you cannot use certain sceneries, Xplane 11 sceneries in Xplane 12, because the elevations in Xplane 12, the developers have to actually use the Xplane 12 core model design to actually be able to create the scenery. So you cannot create a scenery that is flat for Xplane 12 on its own, whereas you could do it on its own without this option in Xplane 11. So obviously Xplane 12 fixed that issue, but some people still argue that in Xplane 12 you're still getting that issue. You're still getting that issue of the elevation because of some erroneous errors or something that has to do with Xplane 12. But I just showed you guys that you could use some of the Xplane 11 sceneries in Xplane 12 once the dot file, because you can go in the same way in Xplane 12 and do it that way, remove the flatten to be able to get this scenery. And I've actually done it for a few sceneries. I've done it for Saint Martin, and I got my Saint Martin to work, because Saint Martin as well isn't completely flat, but I got my Saint Martin to work. I got my other some other sceneries. I actually have to test Istanbul, because Istanbul is not flat. The different airports are, the different runways are actually on different elevations. A lot of issues to do when it comes down to LTFM, Istanbul.
Coming up to like the airport scenery, like default scenery for the airport, the appearance is very similar. For example, like Piarco International Airport, the default scenery is accurate, but just some accuracies in like some parts, like stuff. And also in Guyana and Australia Jargon, it's very accurate with the boarding bridges and stuff.
So the
Terminals.
The terminal. Oh, so you're talking about now in terms of the actual terminals. It has a little bit more detail. That looks a little bit better.
Different than Microsoft Flight Simulator, which has a very, how can I say it? Bloxy type of users.
But funny enough, Microsoft still uses FSX core coding since 20 years ago. So most of the things that actually at the artifacts and all this kind of stuff is still from the core sim. Anyway, from way back. Anyway, just obviously they tweak things a little bit. Actually, the developers put a little bit more things to Microsoft. But really and truly, if they didn't do it that way, then Microsoft airports would have looked the same as Xplane. Anyway, it's just that Xplane, in Xplane 12, obviously they created the airports to have a little bit more. To have more depth than Xplane 11. Now the only difference with Xplane 11 there in terms of that area is that in terms of the 12, I would say they use the libraries, because a lot of the libraries in wasn't really part of the sim in Xplane 11. So that's why in Xplane 12, you don't need libraries in Xplane 12 to actually get those airports to look the way it looks. Like to actually have the terminals and you don't need the libraries. You don't necessarily need them. But a lot of the old type of airports, old-ish type of airports, you still have to use some of the Xplane 11 libraries. So just to be able to get some of the hangars and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like in
yeah.
Xplane 11, you gotta use like airport. I think it's environments. I know enhances like the ground textures and all of sorts of things.
Right. Exactly. So in that segment, which I'll just close off that section of this segment, you can say that in Xplane, whether Xplane 12 or 11, you still have to use quite a lot of things to actually still make the sim look good in Xplane 12, because you still have to use certain things anyway, with the sim. Now, my take is that, and not just me, about 5 days ago when I was, on Facebook, because I'm part of Facebook, I'm in the forums, different forums in Xplane, Microsoft, I chat with a lot of people and stuff like that. They're always responding in a lot of the posts and stuff that I put up. Like I put one on Facebook, in Xplane 11. I think I'll probably just show you guys, just to show you guys, I have some little chats. Not just little chats, but I have some I post up some pictures and stuff, and people comment and we have our discussions in Facebook about. So like the other day I was saying Xplane 11 with auto author makes life makes life so much better, with the auto author, right? And quite a lot of people came and comment under that post. So I'm just here finding the post here. Okay, here it is. So I'll just show you guys that post here. Here it is. So I posted this on November 20th. So I was saying, how good is Xplane 11 with auto author? So you guys can see on my screen right now. How the auto author makes the screen. Somebody said this was Xplane 12. Now, it's not Xplane 12 really. It's just that the lighting, I actually had a tweak. I actually had a tweak. The enhancer thing, and then I actually put, I took out the clouds and all that kind of stuff. So it just looked like that. So it looked exactly like Xplane 12. How it looks in Xplane 12. So this one is when you have all the clouds now. You can see just there, and then when you put the clouds, obviously these are tweaked. These are tweaked clouds, obviously. This is what is it called again? The sky script, enhanced sky script. So when you have the enhanced sky script with the auto author, and this makes Xplane 11 looks, makes Xplane 11 look so much better.
See that picture that you're showing now, the one previous.
The previous one?
Yeah.
Sorry. You mean this one?
So like the previous one, the first one.
This one.
Yeah. The one that one. So about being inside. I did it Xplane 12 as well. It was that one. And that's what I like about it as well, is really high. So like coming through the ocean side, you've got to do so if you're coming at a course of 320, you have to come left to a full left 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you got to come all the way round and then descend just on top of the mountains.
Yeah.
And then come back straight in for a runway 09 or 27 approach.
Right.
And like, the elevation of the airport was actually quite insane.
And that's yeah.
Considering it was a short runway, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it it makes it so much better. When you, I mean, I didn't really want to discuss too much of the softwares that makes the sim better, but when you get these softwares, because the default, Xplane 11 or 12, sometimes it's very hard to get accurate, accuracy to be able to fly some of our approaches. The elevations might be a bit off. Example, in Xplane 11, the elevation is a bit off. Not a bit, it's quite a lot off, but Xplane 12 is a little bit more because the data is a little bit more newer. If I can remember, I think the data in Xplane 12 is either 5 years, it's 5 years ago, I believe, but that's much more recent compared to FSX and them. That was like since 2000 or 2005, I believe, or something like that in terms of the data. So obviously things a lot more sharp, a lot more up to date. But yeah, you can actually fly these approaches, around these terrain and stuff a lot more accurate with the data, from more accurate. The terrain looks a little bit better, stuff like that. I had a lot of discussion here, 25 comments and people are talking about, stuff like that to do with Xplane. But yeah, I think Xplane, Laminar, in terms of, doing Xplane 12, I would say they've done a lot to actually have a reason for Xplane 12, I believe. You have, like I said, the rain effects is already embedded, so you don't have to go back and look for all of this thing. The volumetric clouds is there, even if it's not the best, but it's still there. The lighting is a little better. The scenery looks, I would say, arguably better than 11, obviously. The terrain contour, you have the follow contour is now embedded, so it shouldn't be an option in the first place anyway, because no airport is flat. So these things are supposed to be there naturally anyway. Like, I don't know if it's the developers want to find a shortcut by just putting everything flat, but it shouldn't be the case where they do it that way. But yeah, and for me, like I said, another big one is seasons. So now you don't, people couldn't configure the season. They couldn't get seasons properly done to be able to change. But I have it. I have the seasons fully tweaked in the sim, so I actually can use the way I actually have for the 4 seasons thing, right? So I actually have it fully running, and it works really, really nice. Like, I can actually use it with the auto offer to actually get it. You just have to change some tweak something. So for example, you don't want the auto offer to be ahead of the 4 seasons, right? Because you also want to see some of the tweak of the the ground layout and stuff. So you can still see like the what they call that, the ice and all this kind of stuff in the sea, because that's why it changes. It changes a lot of these things, like where the ice is and all that kind of stuff. Where the snow is and stuff like that. So that's if you're not using auto offer, then obviously it makes sense to actually have that software. The 4 seasons, which would give you that. You can use it automatically. Opposed to that, the developer of that will actually create that, and to be able to get seasons. So you get pretty much an entire package with auto offer, with the cloud mod, which I have my Xplane 11 looking just like Xplane 12 in a way. Just the lighting is not the same as Xplane 11 as Xplane 12. I don't need the lighting to look bluish. So as I showed you guys, that was my Xplane 11 lighting and everything in the pictures I showed you guys, and that's just some of them. That's not even all of them. But I'll show you guys the on screen. The Xplane 11 cloud mod. I'll show you guys that from my Discord, some of the pictures that I posted up. Obviously when I flew a few times recently with the cloud mod. So let me just get it up on screen here, so that you guys can actually see that. Or probably I can just take it from my pictures and then just show you guys from the pictures itself instead of going for all of that. So just give me a second. That's the cloud mod, which is the sky script, the enhanced sky scripts, which makes Xplane 11 look so much more volumetric, and so you can actually make your sim look so much like Xplane 12,
Yeah.
Okay, so here I have it on screen. I'm putting it up on screen now. All right, here we go. So this, like I said, this is the volumetric clouds. This is not default clouds. The default clouds are pretty flat, and this looks really, really nice. Like when you look at it, you can see so much more text detail. And as I showed you guys in this picture here, when it rains, look how look how it looks a little bit more, just a little bit more depth. How much? I would say it's not looking like just black clouds, like how Xplane had it. Xplane 11 had it. So some of the, obviously you have to pay for some of the payware, this, to be able to get the sim looking just as good. But look how the cloud mod, really, look how the cloud mod really make Xplane 11 look just as good. So my thing is, does Xplane 11 still have a position, I would say, in the sims, whether you should run Xplane 12 versus, in just terms of the things that we discussed, the key features. And I would say if you can get your Xplane 11 to have all of these add-ons to run properly, because I've seen some people I've had some discussions with some guys in my Discord to try to get the cloud mods working properly. They couldn't get it working properly. So certain things wasn't working properly. Even the contour thing, they couldn't get some of their pots working properly, because sometimes they seen the airport looking so crazy dodgy, and I don't know, just looking corrupted and stuff. But if you could get your Xplane 11 looking just as good, then you wouldn't have a problem actually,
Other thing
playing
about
with Xplane 11.
Xplane, in my opinion, Xplane has the water, the waves in Xplane 11 is pretty bad. Like,
Yeah,
I think they with an Xplane 12 and Miguel.
yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, to be honest, the waves in Xplane 11 and 12, for me personally, I don't think it looked good anyway in both of them.
yeah, that's like
So that's why,
riptides, currents, and stuff.
yeah. So that's why I didn't really discuss. I didn't really want to discuss much about it, because for me, I don't really think it looks so much better. Even if Laminar did actually talk and show that the seasons, the season actually changes, and the you can see more wavy, more waves in Xplane 12.
By the way, I'm just gonna step out for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
Alright.
Yeah, but it didn't look much of a difference. That's just how I see it. Because when you go up in the air, it didn't seem to have much of a difference. So I don't think that was something to really discuss that.
Yeah.
But I think I'll go to the next section of the stream, because we still have two sections I want to discuss here. So the next section, which we went way past it anyway, would be the new features. I would say, what makes the sim so much. Huh? What you said? Just now the voice is coming by a little cracky. Can you repeat?
Oh, sorry. I'm saying the features is actually quite a good one to actually bring up, actually, because there's quite some new features that's quite good in the Xplane 12.
And I've noticed, because I actually did a little preview in my when I posted it. I posted it up about 12 days ago. A community post. Pretty much I just put it up on my YouTube. I did it for when Xplane 12.1 came out. Um, I didn't do it for 12.1.2, but I did for 12.1.3. Now, if I show you here, if you guys see on screen over here, like this is a preview here. So, you know, the beta. I'm not gonna play the video. I'm not gonna play the video.
Yeah.
I'm just going to just come here in the timestamps. So you see there's the few things that just got changed, or I believe was a major thing that was changed about it. In the Xplane 12.1 beta, because I believe that beta I believe is by far best, I think, personally. So they did some general fixes. One of them is the ATC as well as ATC improvements. So now you have seeds and star, which I'll just go to here quickly. Let me see.
Here to the ADC part, which
So
is
if I
look a little bit
if I come forward a
in
little bit,
terms of support for seeds and
so
stars now.
I think you guys know about the ARANG 424, right? You're supposed to know about the ARANG 424 IKO standards, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that has to do with like the navigation and stuff like that. So now RNP approaches, all the approaches in the real world follow the IKO, the IKO standards, which is the RN 424. So basically, like you were saying a while ago about going around the terrain and stuff like that. To actually get those approaches, you actually have to have the navigation accuracy. So you might be in an aircraft, whereas the 737, and you might not have that sort of approaches in the box, and you cannot actually fly some of the approaches if you don't have it with within the aircraft database. So I like that they actually have now, in terms of the whole ADC improvements, the seeds and stars, in Xplane 12.1.3, the beta. Now there's like curve path, like for seeds and stars, you can see things a little bit more accurate. They can follow the path a lot more accurate. So hopefully you see it on the screen. Let me show this now. There's a section where they're actually showing it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. So there's a section where they're actually showing it here. So now you can see a little bit more accuracy. So if you have like the TOLIS, for example, the TOLIS, you can fly these approaches a lot more accurate, because the degree of accuracy in terms of actually doing these approaches. Now going into like Queensland, or whether it's Queensland in New Zealand, like I did in my live stream is it Queensland or Queenstown?
I believe that's in Australia, I believe.
No, that's in New Zealand actually. And that
unless Australia's got one.
no, it's actually New Zealand. And actually that approach was really, really nice, like coming around the entire thing, right? So yeah, so just give me a second here. Give me a second. Okay, right. So hopefully you can see on screen here. Before in the 12.1.2, now you see in the 12.1.3, the way the weather is depicted and stuff like that to be on your screen and stuff like that, in the aircraft, you see it a lot more accurate, a lot more accurate than how it was before. And I've tested that, and it actually is different. That's if you participating in that beta, obviously. And I think like that's something that was supposed to be part of Xplane since a long time ago. But let me see. You guys hear me?
I was gonna say I couldn't hear you for a couple of minutes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I was saying one of the things that changed as well is now they have weight category on the ramp.
Yep.
So in other words, now you can finally know which ramp is heavy, which ramp is light, medium category in Xplane 12.1.3. Finally, after many years, Xplane has now finally decided to get that. Why did they not get that? Why did they not do that? Did they not have a database to be able to find, to actually put that, to know which gate is heavy gates? I don't know if it, I do not know why, but something that should have been there from the very beginning, so that you can actually, the UI, I believe the UI in Xplane is by far better than Microsoft. I'm gonna put that here, hands down. I don't know, I'm gonna say it out here, quite frankly. I think the UI is way better in Xplane than Microsoft. But this section of the UI into a heavy ramp now, you know, if I go to the actual, probably if I go to the actual Xplane, I will go to this section so we can actually see the picture looking a lot better. I think, you know, I think that makes Xplane look so much better. Now, why is it taking some time here? Give me some, taking a bit of time here. Yeah, it's taking a bit of time to load. All right, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Where is it? Where did it put it? Where is it? That's the weather. Yeah, missing section. Oh, yeah, I was missing a section. All right, here we go. Hopefully you guys can see that on screen looking a lot better. Hopefully.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, this section here. So now you can see heavies. Like this is obviously Dubai. And you can see now heavy jets. You know, you can actually see that. So you can know which terminal is heavy jet or not. I like that. That's something that they should have had in Xplane a long time ago. Regardless whether it's Xplane 11 or 12, they should have had that a long time ago. So at least people know where they are on the airport, whether they're, you know, and that would have made you, by far, you know, you're in a better place, you know, you put yourself in a better stand, a lot more accurate, you know, you feel like you're closer towards the real world. Even if you can actually go on flightaware.com, you know, you can go on flightaware.com and know which, you know, let's go down here, FlightAware. You can go on FlightAware and pretty much get some airports, some departures that are actually showing you, you know. And now I know, for example, America does that. You know, in America, you would actually see the gate, what gate they're at. Here I'm seeing one with say Terminal 2. But if you like, let's say Boss, no, let me get a small one. I believe Orlando. Let's just use Orlando. And then you go on anyone. Let's say America, Spirit. It don't matter what aircraft. So you see it says Gate 6 in Orlando.
Yeah.
You know, you see it says, and that's for A321, A320 Neo. So you know what gate you go around there. If you can't find Gate 6 because somebody's on Gate 6, you find one of the airports, one of the terminals near Gate 6. You put your aircraft there, so you know you're around the medium. You know, so if I go here in my Xplane, Xplane 11, I don't think I can actually do that here on my Xplane if 11, because I don't think it's updated, and I don't Xplane definitely not. Xplane 11 obviously is out of, you know, so they don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, they don't do any updates or anything else. So pretty much you just have to accept Xplane 11 like how it is right now. Going forward, whether 10 years from now or whatever, because there's no more support anymore for the sim, really. But if you know, like I said, you have websites here. You have websites like FlightAware. You can still go on FlightAware and still know where you are. You know, still know where you are in terms of FlightAware, in terms of what gate, where it is, or what you can actually do is pretty much just go on the airport itself, research the airport itself. So like I did for one of the airports a while ago. Let's say VC Board, for example. I'm showing here, and you know, if you, I believe they have the. Let me see. Do they have? Actually, let me just use one of them that I actually have on my desktop. Probably. Let me use. let me use Trinidad for example, right? I'm using Trinidad here, right? For example. So if you see here, you know, these are like where the different aircraft, you know, companies like Caribbean Airlines, British Airways. But in terms of the actual chart, you can see here the different stand. So if you know what airport it is, and you know it's a domestic airport, then you know most of these are like, you know, medium haul, you know, medium category, you know, terminals. So you can pretty much pick anyone and you know it's gonna be a medium anyway for your aircraft. But if you have like an A380, you're trying to figure out whether you should put there, then you know that's something you have to actually go and research. And then obviously you go on flight aware once you realize no A380. You go in, you know, like I said, TTPP. You realize no airport, nowhere showing like any aircrafts coming out, you know, A380. Then you definitely know there's no heavy gates there. You know, because there's no A380s coming inside there. There's no, you know. But what you could do is you could see where if like a 777, if a 777 coming to that airport, you know, then you can know, okay, well, if a 777 can come there, so let me use like Tobago for example. Tobago have like a heavy gate. 777 goes there. I know British Airways 777 goes there. Probably not today.
See,
But
the thing is, there's only so many airports in the world today that only can handle an A380.
right.
Well, Heathrow is one. Glasgow and Scotland is another.
Yeah, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Oh yeah,
You know,
tell you.
so you know, you go to this, and you would find at least there's a heavy gate.
Yeah.
You know, so let's say I go to St. Lucia this time. You know, I see a 777 coming out of St. Lucia, so you know there's a heavy gate there in St. Lucia. You might not see the gate itself, but you know that they go into St. Lucia. So then you have to figure out what stand do they go in St. Lucia?
Yeah.
You know, and you know you have to go in basically the specs of the airport and know where pretty much what gate. And then obviously because I know they go in gate 5 or gate 6, you know, for St. Lucia. Because obviously like I said, I know, you know, I fly there, I'm from there, so I know which, you know, what stand, you know. So if I come over here, because I know, like I say, I'll know it's stand 5 and 6. I'm sorry, 4 and 5. This one is for more like the A320, but that's more like a parking place. But the 4 and 5, I know that's like the heavy, because I know the op specs of the airport. You know, you go and research and you'll find that. But that's something that Xplane should have done a long time ago. You know, in terms of having that, you know, having the wake turbulent. I'm sorry. Oh, that's wrong. Having the category as you see here on screen, having to know which terminal and stuff like that. But Microsoft has it, and you know that obviously will give Microsoft the edge because you can actually pick what stand. You know, you might feel a little better off with the UI because you think, you know, if things are looking a little easier. That might make you want to fly more in Microsoft because you know you can know where you are a little better. I think. But yeah, that's just some of the new, you know, some of the new things that comes with Xplane 12 compared to like Xplane 11. But that's as much as I have in terms of that regard, in terms of Xplane 11 compared to Xplane 12. And I don't think they've done, I don't think they have much. Now, I mean, that's the new things now. but they would have changed a few things. For example, in the Xplane 12.1.0 that I previewed since months ago,
Yeah.
the particle effects. Now they have two things that they still haven't. They claim they did, but they haven't actually fully implemented it, which is the physics-based camera, which I did preview, and they did come out with a bulletin saying that they're working on trying to get it better. So they didn't actually fully implement it in the sim. In other words, so instead of you having FS realistic to try to get the movements and it's not there naturally in Xplane 12. You still have to use FS realistic to get all of this type of, but the particle effects, for example, if the aircraft, you know, if the aircraft is like, let's say dragging, you don't have your landing gear to see dragging and fire coming on and stuff. It's there in the sim, but the developers have to fully change the aircraft, you know, to fully update the aircraft to actually get all of that running. But the physics base, which is in terms of, like I said, camera, you know, when you thrust forward your engine, you get tucked in your seat a bit, right? You get tucked in your seat a bit. That's not there fully in Xplane 12 since Xplane 12.1.0 beta. It's not fully there yet. So if you're looking left, like let's say the aircraft is banking left or banking right, it's not fully there yet. So you still have to use, like I said, software like FS Realistic, or if you want to use the freeware thing, which is the head shake. If you still want to use the head shake, you can still use the head shake. But the core sim doesn't have all of the newest features. Now I know effect in Microsoft SimFX, pretty much SimFX is what they use to advertise Microsoft 2020 for 2024. You got the time, because the SimFX is pretty much all the particle effects and everything, like, you know, how the thing hover and up, all stuff like that. Now, Xplane 11 did show that. Xplane 12, sorry, did show that. In the updates, they showed how the movement with the hover, with like helicopter, you can see like particles flying all over the place and stuff when like a helicopter coming in, things like that. So you do have particle effects and stuff like that for Xplane 12. So ground movement, the tree, you could actually use, and I know people don't use it. There is 3D trees in terms of if you want to put the tree to sway with the wind and stuff like that and all kind of, you could do that in Xplane 12 if you want to. But it takes a heavy FPS, right? Which we're gonna come to that as a final section, just in a few moments, right? But the new things, I would say the new things in Xplane 12.1.3 is a big difference to the sim. And I didn't actually talk about one of them, which is the map feature. You know, the map now has the taxiway. You can actually get the taxiway signs.
Yeah, I'm back.
Alright, nice. Yeah, the map actually has the taxiway signs and all that in it in 12.1.3, and that makes a big difference, because now you can just press M, load up the map, and you can actually see what the taxiways are, stuff like that, if you do not know where you are. That's if you don't have
that. No, that's what I like about all the sims, like every sim and all that. That's what I like about the realism that they put into it, is the taxiway signs. I know it's weird, but like, you know, if you went on a plane in real life, and then you can just identify what taxiway you're on by looking at outside your window, or if you're even at a window, and then silently around the runway.
Now, I mean, that's the thing, right? They already know that a lot of people in the real world, you want to be flying with your chats anyway, right? That's part of, you cannot depart without your chat. Well, you could depart as a GA, but you just have to let them know and stuff. But obviously, Majority
Yeah.
of transport, you have to actually have your charts and stuff like that. So
Because I'm pretty sorry.
yeah, but the thing is, sometimes the sim might have the wrong taxiways and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
so you might end up with some outdated data and stuff like that, and probably you don't know where you are. So I like that with the sim 12.1.3 beta, naturally they're going to have updated taxiway signs. So if your scenery has wrong things you don't know, you just look at the map view and you will get the actual or the real world updated maps for where you are, where you're going to.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that, which I think that makes a big difference now, because before I would have some sceneries, because the scenery would have been from since 5 years ago. The developers never updated. But you understand, in the real world now, they update the airport in the real world. Let's say whether it was 3 years later, and then you have a case where the ATC telling you to go to somewhere and you actually don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Uh,
And like
because
especially when you look on the like in a flight deck, you always have like an aircraft that has the EFB.
right,
Then you just look on their charts on that and all that, and say it's looking up old school and having like paper, like massive amounts of papers, as you
yeah,
telling you what taxiways you're needing to go and the charts and everything.
yeah, and well, that's the thing. I guess that's where, I mean, like I said, I don't want to bring Microsoft into this, but with Microsoft now, obviously now they have embedded Navigraph. So you can see that Xplane 12 is doing just as the same way in terms of Xplane 12.1.3 beta as
Yeah.
as as Microsoft 2024, to have embedded the up-to-date real world taxiways and all that kind of stuff embedded already in the sim.
Yeah.
So you always know where you are, regardless if you have whether outdated, because not everybody has Navigraph. Not everybody.
Yeah.
You look outside. Yes, you look outside. You see Bravo, but they tell you turn at Charlie. You're looking for Charlie, can't see Charlie, and you're seeing Bravo, and you wonder, well, what's happening. But then you didn't realize in the real world they update that position. But even if Navigraph is updated, but the actual airport, right? The
Yeah.
actual, because the Navigraph, you will go on Navigraph, you get the latest Navigraph data, but the airport facility in the real world haven't actually updated, or whether, sorry, not the airport facility. I meant to say the provider of those charts didn't update it to the current date. In other words, for example, FAA would have up-to-date charts, whereas ICAO or whether it's Jefferson, they might not update it to the current date because some of the charts don't
Yeah,
change.
yeah. Really, I think important Xplane 11. I find the signs like kind of messed up or outdated. Like let's say taxiway whiskey in Piaco. Is in the scenery is already Oscar, so it's not updated as much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I actually cancel my subscription. I guess I'll just put that out there now. I actually canceled my subscription last week with Navigraph. Actually, it was supposed to due to expire within the next couple of days, probably 2 days or so. I canceled it because a lot of the charts companies, well, call it providers, they don't update it. So in other words, you don't go on your chart and look at the date. Now, I know a lot of people don't look at the date of the actual chart. People don't even say, okay, you're looking at 20-5 chart or something valid for this date to that date. People don't really
Effective on this date or date.
yeah, people don't really study that. But it is in the real world, you actually have to say that in the real world so that both pilot and the co-pilot actually has the same chart. Now, they actually have to have the most updated chart as well. And majority of the time, yes, you update through Navigraph, but the Navigraph does not give you the latest date or the most accurate date of wherever jurisdiction, whatever area that you're in, the actual data, chart of that current period. In other words, you go on Navigraph, yes, you will get the latest Navigraph charts for like the Caribbean, and the date of those charts will still be from 2013, right? The date of those charts will still be 2013 or 2012. Some of them I've seen it 2020 because they don't give you, or in other words, I mean, whoever facility that's supposed to look after that, because it's actually governments that's supposed to look after that, to give you the latest
Oh yeah, like
data.
I also recommend this for them for senior for like airport maps, like new terminals and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Understand what I'm saying?
Exactly, and they don't do it. Now I know in Europe you can actually look on some of the Jeppinson charts and stuff, and they'll tell you there's a construction area going on here in this area, or whatever the case may be. For some of them, you can actually see that. Now, that's not with all of them. That's just with some. So it really and truly is up to the, like I said, the countries, governments, and all of them to release those data and all that kind of stuff. Because if you go on NAV, American charts, FAA charts, they give you as much data as they would.
Also,
yeah.
coming up with the topics of shared cockpits. Would you do it?
Say that again?
Never mind, don't worry.
Okay. All right, well, we just covered some of the new features, but the last thing I'm going to stay on, or the last thing we're going to talk about, is we're going to talk about pretty much the performance section, right? The performance upgrades, I would say, between Xplane 11 and 12, because that is a big difference. I would say there is a big difference there in Xplane 11 compared to 12. Now, I have watched a video from Xplane themselves, right? And from Laminar themselves, right? I think his name is Brown. And he was detailing, because he does episodes like these, on YouTube and stuff. And he was detailing how Xplane 12, you lose about 50% FPS. That's coming from him. That's quote from Brown from Laminar. You lose about 50% FPS in Xplane 12 compared to Xplane 11. 50% FPS drops. Now, I have noticed that because I have both 11 and 12. I have done the comparisons, and my FPS takes a big hit in Xplane 12 compared to Xplane 11. I have a more fluidity and stuff like that in Xplane 11 compared to Xplane 12. My frame goes down tremendously in Xplane 12, sorry. Why is that the case? Because they have to load in all of this more 3D nature type, of things in Xplane 12, right? Regardless whether it's a beta or you're running a stable version, the memory usage is a lot more compared to Xplane 11, right? So you're using up more memory. The VRAM, for example, because if you have to render all of these 3D trees in Xplane 11, like we say, we're not going to talk about how 3D it is, just the fact that it has 3D nature, trees, scenery, all of these things. The VRAM goes up, like all the things you actually have to run in Xplane 12. There is now, like we said, the robust thing, which can be able to more put your screen, more focus your screen and stuff like that. Whether focus your textures a lot more to focus your cockpit textures in Xplane 12, as well as we were talking about the ambient, what they call it, the ambient, I believe that's the word, the ambience, in other words, of the the lighting between the clouds and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more 3D type of volumetric type of things, lighting and stuff like that in Xplane 12, which makes your VRAM, it bumps up your VRAM, and you have to use actually more memory as well. You need more CPU to even run those 3D type artifacts. Now, CPU and GPU is two different things, yeah. But to be able to run the actual core sim, you need a lot of CPU. You need a lot of CPU to even run Xplane 12. Compared to like in Xplane 11, obviously a little bit less, because now all the things that is running in Xplane 12, you actually to be able to run the sim, because the actual design of the buildings, not the 3D nature. We're not talking about how 3D it is, because you can actually change this 3D nature, whether you want less 3D, more 3D, stuff like that. You can actually change that. But it's literally like just loading in those type of 3D stuff, sort of design in Xplane 12 is a little bit more. So then you find like you need more CPU horsepower to be able to run Xplane 12 compared to Xplane 11. And yes, when I get 40 FPS in Xplane 11, I will only get about 30 to about 25 FPS with Xplane 12. So there we go. In terms of like you already lose half the frames to be able to run Xplane 12. Now you're using more, like I said, more VRAM. You're actually using as well more memory, more VRAM, to run the sim. I think that's a bit of a problem, because you have to do too much to be able to run Xplane 12 to get all of these features that they have, like the rain effects, to be able to 3D render all these rain effects and all this kind of stuff. Man, you need GPU to actually get that 3D nature of rain, to show the clouds, how the cloud, the cloud, to put the cloud lighting, how the cloud lighting is on the scenery and stuff. That is GPU as well, to be able to get those. Now I know ray tracing isn't fully there yet in any sim, in any flight, in any gaming actually, but ray tracing is on the way to actually becoming a norm. Ray tracing is soon there to become the norm in any flight or any gaming. Now you're gonna need way more GPU to actually run ray tracing. Now ray tracing is how the shadows is on the objects and blends and all that kind of things. Like when you move your head, the lighting changes in certain degrees with the light and stuff like that as you move. All that is ray tracing, right? How much can a sim use to be able to run all of that? It's going to take a lot. All I can say is it's going to take a lot to actually run all of that, especially Xplane going on that direction as well, to get volumetric type of everything in the sim. But what you guys notice in terms of that regard? Or if you guys notice anything at all in terms of that regard, in terms of performance in Xplane 12?
Yeah.
I mean, in Xplane 11, I have come into more populated areas and more how do I say it, like more bigger airports. I find my frames drop a little bit, which results in my flightsim disconnected because of the frames and stuff.
So in other words, on its own, the sim can actually, you still get enough frames, but then when you're connected to VATSIM and all these other things, then obviously you get a lot of frame drops, right? As you have
frame drops something, and it gets even worse than even going to
right. That's right. So that's why on its own, like I said, we're doing everything vanilla. We don't do add or talk about or put add-ons and too many add-ons or anything like that. Just the vanilla sim. Run Xplane vanilla sim, and you go in like Los Angeles, because I've tested these things. My frame would drop really, really bad. Just vanilla sim with like depends on the aircraft, obviously. If you're like a A320 or something like that, the frames would drop tremendously, like drastically. Like you would lose. You could see a difference you could tell a difference between like 10 frames more to like 5 frames less, and I've noticed those differences, and it's really difficult for a lot of people to accept, I would say, Xplane 12, knowing the big FPS drops, and whether the things that is in the sim is enough for you to actually have Xplane 12 is a question. Like we talk about the rain effects, we talk about the volumetric clouds, talk about the lighting, talk about scenery, talk about following the contours, and we also talk about the seasons. Now, we haven't spoke about really aircrafts per se, because these are like add-ons and stuff. But just having any payware aircraft in the sim, you lose a lot of FPS regardless what aircraft it is. Compare that to like the sim, to any vanilla airports in Xplane 12, you're gonna lose a lot of FPS. The only good thing I would say is what I've found is that you don't get a lot of degradation where your FPS will drop from 35 and just stays at like 15 as time goes by, and back up to about 30, and then probably go back down once it gets to like closer to the airport. Whereas in Microsoft, you can be somewhere for 5 hours or 3 hours or whatever, the FPS will just drop after a while, regardless whether you're at a heavy airport or not. That was the issue that most people had with Microsoft. But with Xplane 12, I haven't really noticed much degradation. But I know there is degradation when it comes to being at heavy airports. But you get your FPS back. Like I said, you get your FPS back once you get out of the airport. And, it stays pretty stable throughout. Whereas Microsoft, you don't stay stable. You find out you 5 FPS. That's if you're taking it closer. You find out you 5 FPS, or 5 to 7 FPS lower than where you normally would be, or you strike a balance for. When it comes to Xplane 12. Now, Xplane 11, I haven't noticed much of these things in Xplane 11. I haven't really noticed. What I've actually found out, or actually what I've realized, is you can actually use like your graphics can actually be on max or pretty high. Use third-party add-ons and stuff like that, sceneries, all this kind of stuff, and fly with Xplane 11, and you would still get, it wouldn't be smooth, but you can feel like you can move around and be, you enjoy sim. Xplane 12, not necessarily too much. And I would say in Microsoft, I don't think I ever got that. In Microsoft, I was always worrying about when will the sim start to degrade. In other words, when will the performance start to just drop, and then I'll feel like, oh damn, like I don't want to fly the sim anymore. Like I would want to fly a 5-hour flight within the first, after 2 hours, 3 hours, when I realized the sim is like too bad, the performance is too bad, it seems like it's exhausted, I just want to put it off and call it off,
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with it, because you actually have to use a lot of tweaks. You see frame gen, people talk about frame gen and all these things. Now, to close off, what makes Xplane 11 or 12 even good enough to fly anyway, right, is that you don't even actually need, like I was saying from the very beginning, you don't even need internet, right? So that's a big benefit when it comes to Xplane. How big of a benefit is that? Now, I think people need to give that a very good thought of, because it seemed like
Yeah.
it seemed like everybody just left or want to leave completely Xplane. They've already left micro. I know they already left Xplane. I'm sorry, Xplane 11. I already know they left P3D. I already know they left FSX and this kind of stuff already. But should they leave at least entire Xplane community? At least have Xplane 11 or actually have Xplane 12. Why? Because you don't need internet to run Xplane.
Yeah, that is true because one time I was coming into Georgetown, Guyana, and I came off and I was still able to land in Georgetown with no stutters or missing air.
Hmm. Yeah, you get so much stutters with Microsoft because of streaming and all that kind of stuff. And if you're sharing, especially majority of people would be sharing internet amongst other members of the apartment or wherever the case may be. That's internet that's not filtered. So in other words, it's gonna be going up and down and stuff throughout the day. It's gonna be stuttering here and there and stuff like that. So what I've found out, because I like to dive a lot into things, is that a lot of people have went and buy their own internet. A lot of people went and buy their own internet. Now, my take on these things is, why buy everything just for flight sim? Why in this world? Why today everybody's buying so many things just for flight sim? I don't understand. My take is, I'm not gonna buy a new internet. I'm not gonna buy a new internet just for flight sim. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna buy a new internet just for flight sim. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Everyone's always buying like their equipment and the fucking new graphics and
yeah,
gear.
I mean, I would say I was a little bit of a culprit at the start, because I was feeling a little bit bored and I just wanted to flight sim. I didn't like the performance wasn't good in my other system. So I paid a lot of money for flight sim and softwares, and then it got to a point where my last system that I had was a very beefy system, and that fried. I paid for that system costing me over $5,000. In $5,000 in terms of Eastern Caribbean dollars, which is in US price, that's about close to 2,000 US dollars, right? To get everything, the GPU and memory and stuff like that, right? A good CPU, and it cost me like literally about 2,000 US, right? That fried within six months. That fried in 6 months, right? 6 months. Now, for the life of me, I was like, what was happening? Why was that the case? Now, I didn't understand that flight sim can fry your system. I did not know about these type of things. Now, I have somebody actually who's been flying recently, and some things happened to his sim, and his sim is very hot, and I feel like it's gonna fry very soon. But he didn't know that flight sim fries your sim. He didn't know that. So I tried to tell him, you need to get ventilation, try to get fly your sim in like AC or stuff like that. You might have to put more costs just to be able to flight sim. But is it worth it? I don't know. For him, I don't think so. But you need a very good cooling system to run flight sim, and a lot of people are trying to run it on as well as laptops. Yes, gaming laptops. I have gaming laptops. I've had PC. Because I was in my apartment, I've overseas.
The solution is the solution, boy. Just put a Lasco fan on it, boy. Just put a Lasco fan.
You know how it is.
It must have been a pretty
Lasco
good
fan.
laptop.
Yeah, because I actually had Razor. I had a Razor blade. I had a Razor, the Razor
Yeah,
blade. I had the what they call the HP. What's it called again? Sorry. If I can remember, it was the gaming lap. It was a gaming laptop, and then I have an IdeaPad as well. I actually use my IdeaPad gaming free. When I'm at, because a gaming laptop is a very beefy gaming laptop as well. And whenever I'm overseas, other places, I would use my systems. You know the what's the one I have over there again? I even forget the name. But with the GPU, but those I have over there is like a 4060 Ti. Yeah, that's when I overseas when in the apartment. But when I'm home, I'm actually using both. I have both systems, so I just fluctuate between whichever one I want because I actually moved by my dad. I come back to my own place here, so it depends on what I want to do. I just use whichever one. Now, yeah, as I was saying, you would lose a lot of performance, right? With all of these things running, especially if you don't even have good internet, you don't even have a good SSD drive. Are you gonna pay for a RAM? Are you gonna pay for SSD? You want the SSD NVMe M.2. Alright, you want an SSD NVMe M.2 that's gonna be very fast, right? Very fast data transfer, over 7,000 megabytes per second, right? In terms of gigs. So like, you know, over that, you want probably like 10, 15,000, data transfer. Both in read and write speeds, right? You want to get that for your SSD drive. Now I have one. I paid for that. That was very, very fast. Like right now, I would transfer 60 gigs worth. I actually deleted my entire P3D within less than an hour. I deleted everything to do my P3D in less than an hour. I would not do that on the other systems. Back in the days, I would not even be able. I would take my entire day. But because I have a very, very fast SSD drive, I can be able to do that, delete things in less than an hour. I did that. Now, I wouldn't recommend people to pay for these things because it's very, very expensive. As well as internet, internet. And to put internet into perspective, where I'm from, or where, Caribbean people and stuff, they would pay $150 for a basic pack, going up to about 200 EC, which is about like, let's say, $70 for internet, which is not the great internet. But you have to step it up to $200+ to get very good internet to be able to go, to be able to stream and to be able to fly with Microsoft. Because the upload speeds from where we're from, the upload speeds is literally like the same for like base pack, medium pack, and only towards the very high end packs you get like more. You get like probably just 10, 20, because I just checked it last week. You get 20 because it moves from 40, that's without throttling. It has a throttle, then it goes down to like 30 uploads, 30 megabytes, you know what I mean? That's not even a lot. Stuff like that. But then it goes, as you pay more money for the internet, you only get about like 20 more on top of the 40, so you're only going up to 60. So you're gonna be paying around 300 for the highest package. Do you need that? 300 EC, let's say about 300 plus $60, right? Or probably 200, let's say $280 or something EC, which is like, let's say about 100 US. I mean, for us, that's a lot of money. Now, some parts of the world, you might figure that's not a lot of money. In terms of US per US dollar, paying 100 US for internet in terms of a US citizen, that's way too much money. Somebody in Britain paying, let's say, £50 for internet is probably not a lot for them. But imagine paying £100 as dollar for dollar for internet. That for somebody else, that might be too much money for internet. That might be a lot of money for them, for their, for them, that might be a lot of money. Depends on where you are. So I'm just saying, you have to step up your internet. You have to step up your internet to be able to get better, just to be able to stream better. That might be an issue. I see that way. That might just be an issue. I see that way. Some people might not see that way, but for me, I don't believe that people are supposed to do that. I'll probably go into flight sim just to be able to, for that. That's where Xplane makes it better to have Xplane, because you don't even have to go through too much internet. You just get the awful, regardless whether it's Xplane 11 or 12, you get the awful, and you plug in the awfuls, and you can still get the entire world with your aircraft, with with this sim looking nice, with whichever, whether you have a payware thing to make the scenery, the actual colors look nice, and you're gonna fly Xplane looking just like Microsoft by itself.
Actually, Miguel, unrelated question, right? But you're still gonna do these shared cockpit flights?
Not too sure.
But
anyways, let me just close off this stream here, and then we will discuss these things just now. Okay, so guys, thanks. Thanks for at least coming on, and then so that was just episode 1, and then we'll probably talk a little bit more about these things another time. So so let me just close off the stream here, and the chat just give me a second here.